Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the fourth episode of our podcast, Duel MBA. Today, we are going to be discussing a topic that I personally know very little about. And I'm sure all your listeners are keen about learning this topic as well. I'm guessing you're listening to this podcast while relaxing on a chair, sipping your favorite cup of coffee, or playing it in the background as you're doing your daily chores. So before I ask Mr. MBA and Marwari Seth my questions, I would like you to think of a scenario. So you've just entered your favorite e-commerce app, let's say Amazon or Flipkart. You place an order for a nice pair of headphones. The app says that it will arrive in 2 days. But it arrives in a day. Now, wouldn't you celebrate that moment? The reason I brought up this scenario is because our today's topic is about what kind of management goes behind making a commodity reach the end user. My scenario that I just spoke about is a very specific supply chain related aspect related to e-commerce. But the subject of supply chain is vast. And with that, I would like to ask my first question to Mr. MBA and Marwari Seth. Can you explain in simple terms what supply chain is? Mr. MBA, why don't you answer this for us first?
Sure. Supply chain management is the management of how goods and services evolve from raw materials into products that are sold to consumers. It includes the processes of moving and storing raw materials, storing the finished products until they sell, and tracking where sold products go so that you can use that information to drive future sales. Supply chain includes everything, right from procurement of raw materials, making the goods to delivery of the end product, finally to the consumer.
अरे ये simple definition कैसे हुआ? मैं बताता हूँ supply chain क्या होता है.
Hang on, Sethji. Take it easy. Please allow me to complete.
Okay, ठीक है. Go on.
The process of SCM involves every aspect of business operation: logistics, purchasing, and information technology. It integrates materials, finances, suppliers, manufacturing facilities, wholesalers, retailers, and consumers into a seamless system. Some of the steps involved in establishing a system of supply chain and management are: number one, designing and planning the supply chain when the business is established. Number two, carrying out the plan and carefully controlling the variables. Number three, monitoring performance of each part of the supply chain. And number four, communicating regularly with supply chain partners and reinforcing their participation in it. Therefore, supply chain management seeks to streamline every part of the chain and processes involved. By doing this, profit is maximized and product defects are minimized. That's what I have to say.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. MBA. That was a very polished answer. Marwari Seth, what do you have to say to my question?
Okay, let me try and make this even more simple, right? Sorry, Mr. MBA, but थोड़ा jargon से आता था, right? So simply put, I am selling a product to my customers, and they expect the product with a certain level of quality, at a certain price, and to be delivered at a certain time. I have to ensure that I meet those requirements. That starts from whatever raw materials and labor I need to build the product, to actually making the product, to delivering it to my customers. That is my end-to-end responsibility. So all my vendors need to ensure that they meet my requirements, not just in quality, but also in time and price. So let's start there, because this is exactly what my end-to-end supply chain is. I have to be very clear on what I need, and I have to tell my vendors the same thing. Once this is established, only monitoring is continuous, and that is what we need to focus on.
Sweet. Thank you, Marwari Seth. That was, both of you answered what supply chain management is. Although I would say, after listening to your answers, I would say that supply chain management is not something that's very simple. So let me move on to the next question. Why is supply chain management important? Marwari Seth, why don't you answer this for us first?
Sure. Okay. So for me, supply chain is the most important part of the business, without a doubt. we have spoken between us, right, about other things in the past, like hiring, branding, blah, blah, all that, right? But all of that is nothing compared to how important supply chain is. It is as important to me as my customers are. Without my supply chain, there are no customers. Without customers, there is no need for a supply chain. I said earlier, right, supply chain depends not just on quality, but also price and timing. Now, if I can get something cheaper at the same quality from another vendor, I can give it cheaper to my customer and he is happy. If I can send it to him one day before itself, he is happy. No matter what you are selling, your customers expect consistency and reliability. That is what turns a one-time customer into a repeat customer. And the only way to ensure that is with a good supply chain. In fact, I spend much of my time with my vendors as I spend with my customers, because if I can help solve my vendors' problems, I won't even have any customer problems.
Thank you, Mr. Marwari Seth. There was a lot of value given by you to your vendors, your time and efforts, and that's something that's posing a lot of questions in my mind. So thank you for your answer. Mr. MBA, what do you have to say about this question?
Well, the success of a business is linked to the efficiency of its supply chain. A business with a well-managed supply chain may significantly reduce all operating expenses connected to the chain, thereby contributing to greater profit. The craft of supply chain management is achieved by research and strategies. SCM means managing costs at every step and delivering goods to consumers as quickly as possible. It assumes that every product that is for sale exists because of the various participants in the supply chain. A supply chain manager is a trained professional responsible for 5 essential components of the chain. Number 1, strategy of the supply chain. Number 2, source of the materials. Number 3, efficient production. 4, delivery mechanisms and logistics. And number 5, manage returns of defective or unwanted products. The manager works to prevent shortages and reduces costs through these 5 major elements, which has a direct impact on profits.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. MB. I see that your answer was driven by profits and strategy, which is in contrast with what Marwari Seth said. So, yeah, good answers, both of you. Let's move on to the next question, which is, what are the benefits of supply chain management in a company? Mr. MBA, can you answer this for us first?
Supply chain management helps the business gain competitive advantage by delivering products to customers quickly.
Hey, but that's not the only thing, no, Mr. MBA. Dhande mein everything contributes to time and money.
Oh yes, absolutely. That is absolutely correct. I'll talk about a few ways in which it accomplishes this without requiring the company to lower prices. For example, it lowers the cost of doing business by reducing purchasing and production expenses. For example, let's say you own a grocery store and buy tomatoes directly from the farmer. By doing that, you eliminate the expense of having a third party buy for you. Purchasing directly from the source not only gets you better pricing, but also gets the food to your shelves quickly and efficiently. Number 2, it supports strategic plan for the business and helps to build the infrastructure to support future growth, even on a global scale. With reference to the previous example, the previous scenario, if you as the grocery store owner develop strategic partnerships with the farmers early in your business, the farmers can grow their operation as you grow yours. You will be able to scale those partnerships as the business grows. Therefore, the goal of effective supply chain management is higher profits through improved customer satisfaction at a lower cost of doing business. Profits are healthier when costs are controlled and reduced where possible. Operating costs reduces when the cost of raw materials and production costs reduces.
Got it, Mr. MBA. Thank you for that answer. Marwari Seth, what do you have to say about this question?
Cost is one thing, but not the only thing. What else can be better, right? Maybe I can charge more if I can deliver a day earlier, no?
You are saying cost is not important? Hey, come on, Sethji.
Yeah, who said that? But let me give a simple example, okay? Something all our listeners will know of. Say you want to buy a pair of headphones. So you check on Amazon and also on Flipkart. Amazon sells it for 300 rupees and Flipkart for 280 rupees. But Amazon is giving it to me in one day and Flipkart is taking 1 week. Which one will you buy?
From Amazon. But that's because it's a small price difference.
Correct. So who said that the premium has to be a lot? Look, the goal is to maximize revenue and profit. If my supply chain can help me charge a premium, small one, that's good for me. Right? But also on the profit side, I have to figure out my total cost. No? The example you gave, right, Mr. MBA, on buying directly from the farmer. So in that case, while my per tomato price is lower, there is still an overhead of my time to procure, cost of extra shipping, etc., etc. So I need to factor all of that in for any decision in my supply chain.
Thank you, Marwari Seth. That was, I really enjoyed the debate that you guys had between, the premium and the example that you gave about Amazon and Flipkart and how you would buy your phone. So thank you for that clarity in how you answered this question. I think we can move on to the next question, which is, can you give me an example of how supply chain can affect a company's performance? Mr. MBA, you can answer this first for us.
Okay, sure. Let's say company A examines every step in the supply chain and determines that approximately 90% of its expenses are related to the supply chain. The management team focuses on improving its efficiency, and the result is a high-performing supply chain which allows it to negotiate better pricing with vendors for raw materials needed to produce goods to sell. Since it can produce the goods for less, company A makes more profit of their goods, allowing it to grow revenue at a rate that beats the average for the industry without lowering prices. Conversely, company B is a business that gives very little attention to its supply chain, resulting in lower effectiveness. Without understanding the power of supply chain and its effect on operations, company B is less likely to be able to negotiate cheaper pricing and is, as a result, less likely to be able to compete with company A. Company A and B's image could be small sole proprietorships or international corporations, but the outcome would be the same. The importance of the supply chain to business success tends to stay consistent across the categories.
Mr. MBA, a question here, right? Can company B still flourish with very little attention to supply chain? Is that possible according to you?
Yes, Seiji, it is possible, but there has to be a base strategy that can back this up, right?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Marwari Seth. Would you like to answer it for us?
So I was thinking, right, it's possible, but it's not easy. I think that's probably the one thing that Mr. MBA and I can agree on. For company B to succeed, there has to be other things going in its favor. Maybe it's a unique product or hardly any competition in that space. If that is the case, then the company will focus on things apart from supply chain as a priority. But those are rare. Most companies today are the company A types. And for that to succeed, it is important to control and understand your supply chain.
Beautiful answer. Thank you both, Mr. MBA and Marwari Seth, for answering this question for us and providing clarity again on such a simple yet thoughtful question. A big thank you to both of you for answering the questions and giving such great insights in the subject of supply chain management. I'm sure the listeners have been able to learn the concept, think of why is supply chain important, and also what happens if there is no supply chain management in the company. In today's episode, what really caught my attention was that if there is no management around how the supply chain functions, then I'm adding all kinds of inefficiencies. The goal is to supply what each one of us creates or produces, give value to the customer, and make profits at our end. We can go about this the MBA way or Marwari way. The choice is yours and mine to make. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Duel MBA. We will come back with more episodes on various topics related to management. Do follow us on whichever streaming platform you're listening to this on. See you next week.